Captain.
This plane isn't stopping.
Co-pilot.
Do something, anything, stop it.
The runway is about to end, but this TAM Airlines plane is still racing forward at extremely high speed. The co-pilot has the brakes fully pressed. His voice is shaking.
Stop, stop.
But instead of slowing down, the speed feels like it's increasing. The captain's eyes are locked on the runway end ahead, where the asphalt ends and the city begins. Below is a busy highway. Cars moving, people busy with their lives, completely unaware that an out-of-control plane is coming straight toward them. The final section of the runway is now in front of them, and they have only a few seconds left. Will this plane stop, or is this about to become the darkest night in Brazil's aviation history? An even bigger question is, how did this plane end up in such a situation? Let's begin this spine-chilling story, known as TAM Airlines Flight 3054. Before we dive into today's story and fully understand this incident, it's important to know how such a large plane actually stops. Often we imagine a plane like a car or a bus. It lands on the runway, the brakes are applied, and it stops. But it doesn't work that way. Stopping a commercial jet, especially a heavy aircraft like an Airbus A320, is no less complicated than flying it. When the plane touches down on the runway, its wings are still generating lift and the engines are still producing power. The wheels are on the ground, but the plane's full weight hasn't yet transferred onto them. So just pressing the brakes isn't enough. To stop a plane, multiple systems must work together in a precise sequence. If even one system doesn't respond at the right moment, the balance can be lost. The first step is to reduce engine power to idle. Just before touchdown, the cockpit voice announces retard, signaling the pilots to pull both throttles back to idle. This isn't just to reduce speed, it tells the aircraft that the flight has ended and the landing process has begun. Next come the spoilers, panels on top of the wings. As the ground spoilers deploy, they destroy the wing's lift, transferring the full weight of the aircraft onto the wheels. Only then do the brakes get the grip they need to work effectively. If the spoilers don't deploy, even fully pressed brakes don't work as efficiently. In fact, the wheel brakes play the most important role in stopping a plane on the runway. But brakes only work properly when there's sufficient friction between the tires and the runway. Problems arise when the runway is wet or slippery. In such conditions, brakes lose effectiveness, and the plane relies more heavily on other systems to stop. This is where thrust reversers come into play. A thrust reverser redirects the engine's power backward after landing. Instead of pushing the plane forward, the engines now push it backward, helping slow it down. They don't replace the brakes, but they work together with them to reduce speed more quickly, especially on wet runways or at high speeds. Along with these, there's another system called auto brakes. Auto brakes aren't for pilot convenience, they're for consistency. The system automatically decides how much braking force to apply, so the plane slows down at a predetermined controlled rate. If any of these systems fail to work at the right moment, stopping the plane can become impossible. In the story we're about to hear, it was exactly this combination of systems and one small oversight within them that led to a major disaster. So remember these points. Now, let's move to that fateful evening. July 17, 2007, at Salgado Filho Airport in Porto Alegre, Brazil. Passengers are moving toward the boarding gate, while TAM Airlines Flight 3054 to São Paulo Congonhas Airport is fully loaded. For the 187 passengers on board, this is just a short domestic flight, about 1.5 hours. In the cockpit, Captain Henrique Stefanini Di Sacco and co-pilot Kleiber Lima are checking their instruments. Both have over 30 years of experience, with thousands of flight hours and hundreds of landings between them. From the outside, everything seems routine, but in the captain's mind, one worry keeps circling, and that worry is Congonhas Airport. São Paulo's Congonhas Airport is located right in the middle of the city with a short runway, buildings all around, and no extra safety margin beyond the runway. There's very little room for error, and the conditions today make things even worse. It has been raining continuously for the past 2 days. The weather briefing confirms the runway is wet. Both the captain and co-pilot know that landing on a wet runway means reduced friction and a longer braking distance. The plane needs more runway to stop. At an airport like Congonhas, this combination can be dangerous. On top of that, the right engine thrust reverser of the Airbus A320 isn't working today. In simple terms, a thrust reverser is a system that helps slow the plane after landing. When the plane touches the ground, the reverser redirects engine power backward to reduce speed quickly. Normally, both engines' thrust reversers operate together, but on this aircraft, the right side reverser had been deactivated for a few days due to a hydraulic leak. According to aviation rules, this is allowed, and procedures exist for such cases. Anyway, the brakes and spoilers handle most of the work to stop the plane, and the thrust reverser just gives extra help. So technically, having one reverser offline shouldn't cause a major problem. On paper, everything looks safe, but the captain knows that this is a short runway, wet, and an Airbus A320 of this size is not easy to land here. Every meter counts. If the landing roll extends even slightly, the margin could disappear. The co-pilot is also aware of this issue, but neither of them is discussing it. At this point, a thought comes to the captain, a method that is no longer standard, but was used in the past. The idea is simple. During landing, use only the working reverser on one side and keep the other engine at idle. This way, there won't be any extra forward push that could temporarily increase the stopping distance. Technically, this method is risky because the two engines will behave differently, and in a high-stress moment, mistakes are more likely. But the captain decides that, given today's conditions, this risk is the better option. Finally, the aircraft taxis toward the runway, and at around 5:19 p.m., it takes off. The flight reaches its cruise phase, where usually the cockpit atmosphere relaxes a bit. But Flight 3054's cockpit isn't feeling relaxed at all. A few minutes later, an update comes from air traffic control. The rain in São Paulo shows no sign of stopping, and Congonhas Airport's main runway has been temporarily closed. The captain and co-pilot exchange looks. This is exactly what they feared. If the runway stays closed for long, the flight may have to divert or hold. The captain runs all the calculations again in his mind, also checking the fuel situation. Diversion is possible, but experience tells them that Congonhas usually reopens quickly. Based on past experience, they decide it's better to continue the flight. Shortly after, another call comes through. After a runway inspection, Congonhas is reopened for limited operations, and they can proceed for final approach. The conditions aren't ideal, but landings are allowed. As the aircraft nears São Paulo, the sky outside grows darker, clouds are thick, visibility is low, and soon descent begins. Instruments show changing numbers. Speed, altitude, heading, everything is routine, but the weather is severe. The captain casually reminds the co-pilot.
Remember, only the left reverser.
The co-pilot nods.
Yes, only that one.
The aircraft is now in the final approach phase. Emerging from the clouds, the Airbus A320 slowly descends. The ground in São Paulo is still not visible. Everything is guided by instruments. The captain grips the controls tightly. At this moment, his only thought is to land the plane safely on Congonhas' short runway. The co-pilot manages the radio while also reading through the checklist. Flaps are set, landing gear is down, and the aircraft is fully configured for landing. As the clouds thin slightly, faint city lights appear below. These are the lights identifying the buildings and streets just beyond the runway. Seeing them, the captain becomes even more alert. He says to the co-pilot,
Confirm rain and runway conditions with the tower.
The co-pilot calls on the radio.
TAM 3054 on final. Please confirm runway conditions.
After a few seconds of silence, the reply comes,
Runway wet, slippery reports received.
The co-pilot immediately repeats, wet and slippery. Those two words sound like a warning in the cockpit. This is exactly the scenario both pilots had mentally prepared for. Their calculations start again. If we follow the standard procedure, stopping distance will increase. At Congonhas, the margin is almost zero. Considering all this, the captain commits internally to his decision. The old method, using only the working reverser on one side. They don't discuss it, as extra torque during landing could cause confusion. Now, the aircraft is fully aligned with the runway. Approach is stable, speed is correct, and the glide path is accurate. The cockpit computer begins its countdown, 100, 50. With every call-out, tension rises. In the cabin, passengers have fastened their seatbelts. Some peek out the windows, but very little is visible. No one has any idea how many critical decisions are being made in the cockpit every second. Runway lights are now clearly visible, with reflections on the wet surface. The captain is ready, and the entire plan is clear in his mind. As the Airbus A320 reaches the final meters of the runway, the cockpit computer clearly announces,
Retard, retard.
This is the cue for pilots to pull both throttles to idle. It's almost an automatic action, a muscle memory. But this time, the captain's mind is fully focused on the alternate procedure. The wheels touch the ground and a slight jolt is felt. At that moment, the captain focuses on the left engine. He pulls the left throttle back to idle and continues to engage the reverse. The left engine changes sound. The thrust reverser deploys, trying to slow the plane. But while focused on this one action, the captain misses something critical: the right throttle. The right engine's throttle was still set to climb power. This means one engine was trying to push the plane backward, while the other was thrusting it forward at full power, and the pilots were completely unaware of this. Normally, after landing, the ground spoilers automatically deploy, cutting the lift from the wings, and the auto brakes activate. But here, none of that happened. The system thought the aircraft was still trying to fly. As a result, instead of slowing down, the plane accelerated forward. Friends, before moving ahead in the video, today I want to make a small request to you. If you are enjoying our videos, please do subscribe to the channel and also press the like button and the notification bell given below the video so that both you and our small channel can grow together and we can continue to bring you the latest information from the world of aviation. Thank you so much for your love and support. Now, let's get back to the video. A few seconds later, the co-pilot's eyes fall on the panel where an amber warning light is glowing. This indicates that one of the aircraft's systems is not reacting as it should after landing. Seeing this, his heart sinks, and he shouts,
Ground spoilers haven't deployed.
Spoilers are the panels on top of the wings that rise after landing, breaking the lift so that the plane's full weight rests on the wheels, giving the brakes proper grip. The captain immediately grips the controls tightly, feeling that something is seriously wrong. Brakes are being applied, but the response is not what it should be. On top of that, the wheels are sliding on the waterlogged runway. The plane is now racing forward at a dangerously high speed down the runway. The captain says in a confused voice,
What's happening?
The co-pilot presses the brakes even harder. Both pilots are standing on the pedals with all their strength, but the plane seems to ignore them entirely. With each passing second, the end of the runway gets closer and closer. The reality is that the left engine is providing reverse thrust, but the right engine is still pushing the plane forward. The aircraft begins to drift slightly, and its nose pulls a little to the left. Now the end of the runway is clearly visible. Ahead, there's a fence, runway lights, and nothing beyond it. No overrun area, no safety buffer, just the city below. The co-pilot suddenly shouts,
Go, go, turn.
Maybe he's hoping the plane can somehow turn or even lift off. But the speed is wrong and the distance is gone. The captain struggles to adjust the steering. Brakes are applied at maximum, but the wings are still producing lift. Finally, the aircraft breaks through the lights at the runway edge and moves beyond the runway. With a jolt, the fence is torn apart and the plane is now completely off the runway. The plane is no longer on the ground. Momentum carries it into the air. Below lies Washington Lewis Avenue, an 8-lane highway bustling with cars. For a few seconds, it seems as if the plane might survive because it clears the highway. But directly ahead is TAM's cargo building, and just slightly to the left is a petrol station. The left wing hits the petrol pumps first, breaking them, sparks flying, and in an instant the whole scene erupts in flames. The Airbus A320 smashes into the building at full force, causing a massive explosion. The blast shakes the entire area. Flames rise high into the sky, and the heat from the explosion shatters nearby windows. All this happens in mere seconds, leaving no time for anyone to react. After the explosion, the area seems frozen for a moment. Within seconds, screams, fire, and smoke fill the surroundings. The Airbus A320 is completely destroyed, with flames shooting high around it. TAM's cargo building is also engulfed in fire, with black smoke rising from the upper floors. The smoke is so thick that breathing becomes difficult. Some people reach windows looking down, shouting for help. Outside, the gas station is on fire, and several cars are burning. Staff at Congonhas Airport and bystanders rush toward the blast upon hearing it. The airport fire brigade is immediately alerted, and within minutes, fire trucks, ambulances, and police vehicles arrive on the scene. When firefighters reach the site, they realize the heat is so intense that getting close is almost impossible. Part of the building has collapsed, but some employees are still trapped inside. Rescue crews set up ladders and spray water through hoses. People, desperate to escape, start jumping out of windows. Some are caught safely by rescuers below, but not everyone is so lucky. It takes hours to extinguish the fire. Fire crews work through the night, and smoke continues to rise even the next day. Then the harsh truth emerges. All 187 people on board the plane were killed, and several people on the ground also lost their lives. The total death toll gradually becomes clear. 12 people on the ground in addition to passengers and crew. 199 lives lost in total. As the fire dies down, a new phase begins, shifting focus from emotions to answers. Congonhas Airport is closed, flights are diverted, and everyone is asking the same question. How could this happen? Investigators begin working among the wreckage. Inside TAM's building, aircraft debris is scattered everywhere. Within days, both flight recorders are recovered and immediately sent to data labs. First, CCTV footage emerges, showing the final seconds of the landing. The video clearly shows the aircraft racing down the runway at incredible speed. Normally, a plane would cover that distance in 10 to 12 seconds, but TAM 3054 crossed it in just 3 seconds. Here, it becomes clear that a wet runway alone could not have caused this. When the flight data recorder is analysed, the shocking truth emerges. During landing, the aircraft's right engine never went to idle. Even after touchdown, one engine was still pushing the plane forward at full power. Now the pieces of the puzzle begin to fit together. The cockpit voice recorder captures panic. The pilots are trying to apply brakes. When the spoilers fail to deploy, The co-pilot's reaction is recorded, along with the captain's panicked voice. At no point does it appear that they were intentionally trying to take off. This was not a go-around. It was purely confusion and panic. Investigators conclude that the captain never pulled the right throttle back during landing, focusing instead on the left reverser, leaving the right engine at climb power. Because of the right engine, the system believes the aircraft is still trying to fly. Spoilers don't deploy, auto brakes don't activate, and brakes alone are insufficient to stop such a heavy plane. As the investigation continues, it becomes clear that TAM Airlines Flight 3054 cannot simply be blamed on pilot error. The story is much bigger. First, questions are raised about the runway condition. The Congonhas runway had been resurfaced a few weeks earlier, but proper grooves were not cut. The purpose of grooves is simple: to channel water away, giving tires better grip. Without grooves, rainwater accumulates on the runway. Investigators acknowledge that even on a dry runway, the accident might not have been prevented, but the wet runway certainly increased pressure on the pilots. Another factor: Congonhas is Brazil's busiest airport. Cancelling flights or closing the runway is a headache for both airlines and authorities. The day before the accident, another aircraft had already slid off the runway. Warning signs were present, but they were not treated seriously. Company policies also came under scrutiny. Rules technically allow an aircraft to land with one thrust reverser inoperative, but rules do not account for the airport, its short runway, or the weather conditions. Allowing such an aircraft to land on a wet runway at Congonhas greatly increased the risk. The cockpit systems were also part of this chain. The Airbus A320 at the time had no loud audio warning to alert pilots about throttle mismatch or an engine still at high power. If there had been a loud alarm, the right throttle might have been pulled to idle in time. In short, the investigation makes it clear: if any one safety layer had been stronger, the accident might have been avoided. This accident was not the failure of a single person. It was the result of multiple small failures aligning perfectly. In aviation, this is called holes in the system. TAM 3054 fell through those holes. The story of TAM Airlines Flight 3054 is not just an accident story. It's a reminder of how a tiny error in aviation can cost so much. It shows that safety never depends on a single layer. That night, 187 people boarded a routine flight, never imagining it would be their last journey. The accident occurred due to pilot errors, but imagine if a reckless pilot intentionally became a threat to lives. To know more, click on the screen to watch that video too.